Awesome. So triple threat. Okay, cool. Super, super, super cool. So Spike, he's like doing his thing. He's the coolest guy ever, and he invites Amber over from like the big dragon land, and she's like the ruler, and she's having the best time ever. And so he invites her over so that he can work on, like, first of all, connecting with her, and then also, like, working together, right, so they can help solve each other's problems. They have a really, really cool relationship, right? And so because of that, because they have this connection, it's, like, super, super powerful way that they can help solve each other's problems by giving each other different perspectives and then helping each other find new ways to approach their problems so that they can, like, solve them really, really well together, because that's, like, super powerful. Now, at the same time, Spike also invites over Thorax, and because Thorax is trying to rule like basically all of the changelings now, and so since he's trying to rule everybody, he needs some help, some coaching, some friend, because like these guys are really close friends, right? And so it's so much easier for them to talk their problems out with one another. Even if like Spike doesn't give him any like unique ideas, it's like 10 times easier to work through a problem when you're talking it out with somebody else, especially somebody who just sits there and listens attentively and cares and like values what you're saying and listens to like what you are and the impact that you have can be significantly scaled up the moment that you just start to embrace the help of others, because others are so powerful. And that's really the idea that's working behind both of these connections and these relationships, is that like they do so much better. The work is just exponentially better when they work together as a team. Now, what Spike doesn't realize is that he accidentally invites Ember over the same day that he invited Thorax over, and so they both come on the same day, which kind of freaks him out because like he wants to give each of them his full attention, right? And he's afraid that if these two meet, then they won't like each other, because he just isn't 100% sure about their personalities, about their interests. And so what he does is a little bit of a problem, right? He takes transparency, okay? And he basically just like gets rid of it. It's ridiculous. He's so secretive. And so what he does is he doesn't tell either of them what's going on, and he blocks them off because he does not want them to meet. He doesn't think they'll get along. He thinks they'll have a huge battle because they're both like different species, different races. And so that's sort of the conflict that he has, is he's just super scared that they aren't going to get along together and they'll have a huge problem and they won't be able to solve their problems. And so because of this, he goes through the day, and Ember gets there first. So Spike, he goes with Ember to like, she's at the castle at the beginning, so they go to the castle and they're talking and they're working through their problems and figuring out what to do, and then they go out to lunch, right? And so they go to lunch, and see, the problem is like Spike knows that Thorax is coming, but he's not telling anyone, right? And so once they get to lunch, Spike like excuses himself for a second, and then like basically just like leaves Ember completely alone, and like totally, distances himself from her. He's not listening to her. He's not, growing with her, working through these problems. He just basically cuts off. He was working 100% here, but then he just cuts off. And then he goes to meet Thorax, and then he goes and has lunch with Thorax, right? And so he's basically just like kind of ditched his friend to go off with another one, right? Which is like crazy, and it sucks so much. And so he doesn't want them to meet because he just doesn't think they'll together, which is like bad, right? Like you've got to be transparent, and you've got to say, hey, do you first of all, like the instant he realizes that he's double booked, like he's got to let these guys know, because like you should admit your wrongdoing, you should admit your mistakes immediately. And that's exactly what happens here with Spike, right? Like he makes a mistake, he double books, but instead of admitting it immediately, he tries to like, work himself out and double it on. You guys remember like Too Many Pinkie Pies, this idea that he's trying to be in like two places at the same time. It just does not work, and it's going to absolutely crush his view, and it's going to hurt his relationship with these two, right? Because he's not telling the truth. And so he goes off with Thorax, and then like midway through talking with Thorax, he's got to leave and go back to talk with Amber, and then he's got to leave with Amber to go back to talk to Thorax. Just goes through this process over and over again, ditching his friends because she's trying to give attention to the other one, right? He wants to give them a feeling of significance, a feeling of importance, and they want to work through the problems that they have together as a group, right? And so that's their goal. That's the importance, and that's sort of the situation that he's in, which is like super cool, right? And eventually, after he does this enough, these guys, they start to get shot, and they're like, what's going on here, right? And Thorax is like, why you keep ditching me? And Spike can't really give them an answer, right? And so he gets in this little tough situation where, like, basically all he can do, right, is move on to either, he's got to tell the truth, or he's got to keep lying, keep, bogusing this stuff so much. And so he tries to, like, pawn off his friends to Starlight, and he tries to give them different people to talk to and different people to work with. But, like, in reality, right, it's this idea that, like, the truth will always surface, and it's just one way or another, it's going to come up. And so they're out in public, and so he goes to his lunch with Thorax, right? And as they're eating, there's like these two people behind them that are sort of arguing. And so Spike goes and he tries to help them out, and he helps them resolve their conflict. And they're all super happy, and he fixes the problem. And he goes back to Thorax, and Thorax is like, "Whoa, dude, how'd you do that? Like, I really need your help. We have a ton of conflict in the Empire, and he needs help ruling, right? He's having trouble with his leadership, just like Ember. Ember, similarly, is having a tough time getting all the dragons to listen to her, and it's a difficult leadership problem for both of them. And so before, like, Spike can actually say anything, though, Ember comes across, and she is, like, from the castle. She was working with Twilight all day and looking at, like, pony things, and she's upset because, like, she feels like Spike's been avoiding him. So Spike tells her that he wasn't really avoiding her, and she, like, snaps at him, right, and yells at him. And Thorax sees this, and he wants to defend his friend, right, because they have this close relationship, they have this close bond. And so he turns into, like, this giant bear, and as a giant bear, he, like, roars at Ember and, like, threatens her, basically. And Spike is just so sad because this is, like, the one thing he was afraid would happen, and it happens right in front of his eyes. And that's when he realizes that he has to come clean, and he has to tell them what's going on, because it's so important that he stay friends with both of these two, and that they come together, and them coming together is really the only way for this to happen. And so he gets rid of, this lies, he pushes away all this crap, and he comes clean, and he tells them what's going on, and he tells them he's double booked, and he introduces them to one another, and so they meet, and Thorax turns back into himself, and they have, like, a cool little meeting, right? And they talk, and they realize that they both kind of have the same problems. And so what they do is super cool. They come together as a group with all three of them, and now they're so much more powerful together than they ever were apart, right? And so they crush this idea that they're separate. They come together, and they work through their problems, and they, like, ally with each other, and they realize that they're, like, super cool friends because they have this common ally, Spike. And at the same time, they're both in very similar, like, leadership positions, right? And so they're working over the same problems, and it really helps them to talk to each other and work through their problems with one another, which is, like, the coolest thing ever. So, like, all you got to do, right, is be truthful and transparent, because, like, in reality, all Spike had to do was introduce these two, and they, like, solved all their problems, like, very quickly. And they made, really great friends, and they're super excited about it. And now, right, because Spike introduced these two to each other, his status increases for both of them, right? And both of them think better of him because like, Spike is the one who introduced them to each other, right? And so, like, if you can facilitate connecting two people in your power base that would, like, seriously help each other a whole bunch, it's going to help everybody grow, because you're going to have the entire mastermind accomplish more, and at the same time, it's going to bring them together closer, and it'll make them think higher of you because you showed them this really awesome companion that's helping them out a lot. And so every time that the new friend helps them, they're also going to associate that help from coming from you. So a really great way to really strengthen those relationships without really even doing anything, right? All you do is introduce someone to someone new, and by helping each other, that person is going to thereby associate the help that they get from the other person with you, rightly so, right? Because they would never have met that person if it wasn't for you. Like I talked about earlier, my buddy who introduced me to that CEO, like, I would never have met that CEO if my friend didn't help introduce me to him. So, like, he has, like, a significantly increased amount of value and perceived significance in my life, right, just because of that one connection. And so it's the same thing with so many of my friends. I have this one friend, and he's, like, getting into music, and he's, like, a DJ, and he's, like, coolest guy ever, right? And he really needs help like learning how to start with live performances and getting his band out there and getting his music out there and his work out there. And so, he comes in, we sit together in my office, and like I just pick up my phone and call one of my really, really close friends who like has a really nice band, and they've got like 4 or 5 people, and they're absolutely crushing it. And so like I put them on the phone and I say, hey, how'd you guys get started? How did you start with live events and concerts? They do a concert or 2 a week, so they're like crushing it, right? And so I just put them on the phone. They talk for about half an hour, connect with each other and meet each other. And now, like, what did that take from me? I had to say, hey, Siri, call someone. And then like it's freaking done, right? And so just by leveraging like your power base, all of a sudden you can both expand it and then connect people. And now like you're gonna be seen as someone who's like ridiculously more valuable, right? And so it's really gonna strengthen the relationship and the connection you have with others, and the friendship. It's just so much stronger if you can just introduce it to maybe that one key person that that they would never be able to access, or it would be very, very difficult for them to access or even know about. And you can give that to them, right? And so that's a really, really, really strong way to have that deep, deep, deep connection with someone else. And that's exactly what Spike goes against here initially, but then he realizes the power of that and the power of that strategy and that method of just connecting 2 like-minded people together and then coming in as that third party, right? And now you have, 1 + 1 + 1 is like 10, right? And so really, really, really powerful way to create a mastermind very quickly in a very specific niche industry space, right, based on their interests. Awesome. So Campfire Tales. So Applejack and Rainbow Dash and Rarity, they all go camping with the CMC, and they're having like the best time ever until, unfortunately, like a whole bunch of like spiders with wings that like can fly all over the place basically like take over their camp and just like barrage them because they like see their food, right? And so they really, really want their food. And so they go over to this huge cave, and they basically decide that, they care about getting home, and they care, about getting through all the spiders, but they're just all over the place, right? And so they care, but not that much. And so they just chill out in this cave, and they tell stories until the spiders go away, because they can't really control all these animals, right? And so if you can't really control something, then you kind of just have to let it do its own thing. And that's pretty much exactly what they do, is they realize that they just have to kind of wait for these guys to fly away and let them do their own thing. And so they come to the cave, and they tell 3 really cool stories about some ancient ponies that we're going to see a little bit more throughout the series, and sort of the backgrounds of them. And so I want to go through them because there's some really, really awesome principles like within each of them, and it's just really cool stuff. So the first one is Rockhoof, right? So Rockhoof, he is this small little guy as a kid, and he really, really wants to sort of like protect. He has this town. They live in this town far, far away, and at this town there's like this huge volcano. And so he really, really wants to protect his town with the people that protect the town, like the knights, the guards people, right? And so he tries to join their team, but these guys are really negative, right? And so because they're negative, they say he can't join because he's not tall enough, which is like the dumbest thing ever, right? And they don't let him join the guards, which is like super, super mean. But he doesn't really have anything to do. I mean, he's a small guy, and he doesn't really know what to do, right? And so he goes back, and he like really cares about getting in here, but like he doesn't care that much. And he realizes that he can sort of do his own thing and try to be a guards pony on his own, and that's pretty much exactly what he does. And so one day, this volcano like erupts, right? And so the whole town is like right here. And so this is kind of where like everybody lives. And so they're kind of freaking out because there's like a bunch of like lava all over the place, and it's kind of not good to have lava all over your town. And so Rocksmith, he takes a huge like a shovel, right? And basically says that he's gonna like dig this trench really, really quickly and divert all the lava away from the town. And so he like kind of sticks his shovel in the ground, starts digging. And even though like all these guys said he couldn't do it, and everyone thinks that he can't be a guards pony, he pushes past these limiting beliefs. He pushes past this criticism. He pushes past the BS and just stands on his own to do his own thing and to pursue his own mission in spite of all the crap he gets told. And that's like the goal, right? Is that you Go hard with what you're passionate about. And that's really, exactly what he does, which is like super, super cool. And so he starts digging and digging and digging. And then this magical aurora surrounds him and his life and his shovel. And he like gets these super cool magic powers, even though he's like an earth point, it's weird. And he digs like super fast, and he's able to do it fast enough to redirect all the lava away from the town and save everybody. And he's like the coolest guy ever, and he's super, super, super happy. Because like the whole town, they're like, he's their hero, and he does the best thing ever, right? And it all kind of comes from this idea that he overcame the hate and just ignored it, right? And so like as you grow and as you start to succeed, you're definitely going to have like a ton of haters. And the goal with it, right, is to just totally freaking ignore that crap, because it does not matter. And he still has huge amounts of success. He has this massive success because he focuses on himself and he focuses on doing what needs to be done. And he just totally ignores the rest of the crap that does not matter to him and to his accomplishment and to his achievement, because it's all him, right? And since it's all him, he does not care. So yeah. Okay, cool. So there's two more. So Mist Main, right? Yeah, Mist Main. So Rarity's in the cave and they're with Apple Bloom but Sweetie Belle more specifically. So she's talking to Sweetie Belle and she's showing like how this cave is beautiful because of the little gold bits all over it, which is like super cool, right? She's spreading positivity and happiness. And then she remembers the story of Mist Main. So Mist Main was like, she came from this town, right? And in this town, everybody loved like plants, and it was like this beautiful gardens all over the place and beautiful homes, and everything was great. And so Miss Main, she comes from this town, and she goes off to like some magic school for like 4 years, right? And then as she leaves, what happens is she used to be kind of like the queen ruler, right? And so since she left, since she was like so talented, she wanted to go and develop those talents in this magic school, right? This other lady comes and she rules everything. And instead of focusing on like the whole society and the whole group, and everybody coming together and having these really powerful relationships as a team and as a unit, what she does is so bad. She sacrifices. I mean, she has personal gain, and this personal gain just crushes the entire town. It's awful. And so she like forces everybody to build her this ginormous castle, and she takes all the flowers and all the plants and all the beauty from the town and puts everything into this huge castle only for her. And only she really like actually gets to have any of the beauty, and everybody else is left with total crap. I mean, not a zip, right? And so they get super sad, because now like they're in this terrible place where their leader is like taking advantage of them, taking advantage of the community, taking advantage of these relationships and these friendships, and focusing solely on like personal gain instead of the collective well-being of the group, right? Which sucks, and it kills everyone. So Miss Main, she comes back after college, and she sees, when she left the town, everything was beautiful, and she's so surprised. And she's like, well, what the heck happened, right? How come everything's just been destroyed? And so everyone tells her to go see the queen, right? The leader. And so she walks in, and like everything around her, she has stolen all the beauty from the town. And she says, well, why have you done this? And she lifts up like her veil. She has like a veil and a mask. She takes off her veil, and she realizes that she has like this old face, and she looks kind of ugly, and her beauty has faded over time. And she says that by having all the beauty and all the purity and all the greatness of the town and its plants and its flowers in like her castle, that it will save everything, right? It'll make her be the most important person and the most beautiful person in the lands. And Miss Main is like, yo, that is bogus. You cannot hurt the majority to help the minority, right? And so it's just this stupid process that she goes through. And so Miss Main decides to do what she, the bad leader, would never do, and it's the best thing possible. She takes her own, she sacrifices herself, and she sacrifices her beauty. She sacrifices, her personal touch, and she's really pretty, right? She sacrifices all of that for the well-being of the community, and she casts this spell that beautifies the whole town again, and makes the evil leader, from young to or from old to young again, and makes her look beautiful again. And she gives all of this greatness outward, and she gives everything she has to the community that she's from. And in exchange for that, she turns into this old, wrinkled, dry, dying person, which kind of sucks. She sacrifices herself for the betterment of every single person around her. And they have such a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous gain from this, all because of this sacrifice that she makes. And this evil leader, she is so moved by this and so changed by this because she was being so mean to everybody. But you have to remember that you have to be nice and positive to all you meet, including bad leaders, including mean people. And so because of that, Miss Main gives everything she has to be better to her. And she is eternally grateful and realizes now that positivity and sharing is the only way to lead successfully, and that she should be nice and pay it forward, just like Miss Main gave so much to her, because she made her beautiful again, right? And it was at her own cost, and it was a self-sacrifice to serve others. And so remember, people care more about themselves than anybody else. And if you can just give someone a huge gift like she did, which was insane, they'll be forever in debt to you. And it fundamentally changes the course of her entire life and makes her realize that she needs to lead with grace and kindness instead of force, it changes everything for everyone, all because of this one sacrifice that she makes, which is so powerful. And then the last one is Flash Magnus, right? So Flash, he is in this legion of guards for the Wonderbolts, and they're all flying together. And the problem is they're in the dragon lands, right? And so there's this huge mountain, and all the dragons are kind of protecting the mountain. And the problem is a lot of the Pegasus, they got trapped inside here, right? So all of Flash's friends are trapped in this mountain. And so Flash, he comes, by himself, and then he also comes with all these other, warriors, and they realize that if they want to get all their friends out, they need a huge distraction to get everybody away from all these dragons. And so Flash comes out, and he says that he'll be the distraction for them so that they can come and save their friends. And he sacrifices his safety so that they can go and rescue everybody, right, and save the day. And so he goes, and he takes this big shield thing and just flies over here and gets all of these dragons to go and chase him and try to kill him. So that while he does that, when these guys are gone, his friends come in, and they get everybody and they fly away over to safety. And they have these huge storm clouds. And so with a few inches to spare, Flash, he's flying away and he's running for his life basically, while his friends pull off the escape mission, and he's the distraction. And he runs and runs and runs, and he goes into these huge storm clouds and makes it out and survives, and everybody escapes and everyone's happy because he was able to make this self-sacrifice for the betterment of the group, for the betterment of the community. And it changes absolutely everything and leaves him as this man made such a huge impact on the community, because he realized that the group will be better and have significantly greater gains as a whole if he took the risk and went in as the bait so that his friends could go and collect everybody and escape. And it worked extraordinarily well and left him as a complete hero, for everybody, right? Because he was the guy who went in and he made this. The heroes are the ones that go in when the time is tough. And they put in the work, they put in the hours, and they take that risk so that the group can move forward and succeed. Really interesting, this idea of, long time ago, when people were living, in little farms or communities, and way, long time ago. The alpha male in a community, right? The person who got first choice of food, first choice of woman, everything that they wanted. The alpha male was the person who, when battle time came, was the first out to defend, the city or the village. They were the first person to risk their life as a warrior. And so this idea that, if you take on risks when challenges arise, people will treat you as if you are the alpha male. You'll be treated as the leader if you take on risks, right? And it's so true in years, thousands of years ago, as it is today. You look at the top people in like manor societies where they have like serfs and they have like everybody works for this one guy who owns the land. If a battle comes, if a war comes, the leader, right, the lord of the land is the one who goes to fight, because you'll get the most reward possible when you take on the responsibility of those underneath you. And so, like, if you want to increase your positioning and your value proposition and what you do, you need to take the risk in the friendships and the relationships that you have and do the tough crap, because that's where you get socially rewarded for it, right? You get rewarded when you do what no one else is willing to do, and you take that next step to the land of the unknown, right? And look at the alpha male, right? The alpha male is the one who goes and fights, and then you get rewarded for that, right? And it's like so different now than it was. Like, you're not risking your life anymore now, but it's still this idea of like the human tendency not to want to change, right? And so you do like same thing over and over and over again. If you just take that small risk to do that new thing, you can have such huge payoffs and rewards that it changes absolutely everything. And that's kind of a process I went through when I got into like investing in the stock market. And it's a really cool concept if you grab that one from Campfire Tales. So cool stuff, guys. Yeah.